Hey everyone, how is it going? Thank you, Adam. Is that where the entire 2023 season budget went? Uh, that's funny. How's everyone doing? Get started in a minute here. The Sealed Local Workshop. Yep, we're basically going to be using this as a base, and also just basically doing some Q&A. So if anyone has any questions, just, throw them out there. All right. So I hope everyone's day is going well. What we're going to be doing here today, something pretty cool. We're going to be prepping a bit for technical interviews. I've done quite a few, so I'm also just going to be generally asking or answering everyone's questions about what they're like, about answers they might have, about certain questions they might ask, stuff like that. So let's get into it. A little bit about myself. If you don't know me already, my name is Zane. I'm a LH coach, direct VTXX, and I've supported a lot of hackathons. And I love gaming and cooking in my free time. So I have slides here, but I kind of want to take it pretty chill here, just have a good time, really. So we're going to be going over some whiteboard questions and just technical and even behavioral interviews in general. I think those are good to kind of understand kind of the purpose behind some of the questions that people ask, so you can get your head around them a bit better. So we're going to be going over just some general tips, then an actual demonstration, some practice, then some review. And let me... Whoops. Cool. And as always, if you have questions, put them in chat. I'll be answering them as we go. But the first thing that I think is really important to note, and I see this a lot from people when I talk to them in general, if they don't have a ton of experience programming in either like a corporate setting or in like a kind of team setting, is just a lack of asking questions. And I think this is something even beyond technical interviews that when you're in the workplace, you just need to be doing more, just because I think a lot of people take interviews kind of very seriously, understandably, but they I feel like some people try to be very perfect at them. Like they try to have the perfect answer and that kind of thing, not showing flaws, when realistically that's going to happen no matter what. And usually if you have a good interviewer, they're going to expect that from you because, it's a whiteboard interview. So you should definitely take the time to ask questions. If you don't understand what the question was, and you're like, hey, my mind just blanked. Can you just tell me what the problem was again? Like, please do that, because the last thing I want is for you to not ask that and just going down a hill, having that kind of snowball effect. We have this kind of knowledge gap, and usually they're pretty happy to give you more clarification. And if they can't give you more clarification on a certain part, they'll just tell you that. That's completely fine. But you have to do what you can, because asking questions is an obvious thing, but I think it's an underutilized thing, especially in when you're actually in the workforce. I worked at General Mills for a while in an internship, and one thing that I found that was kind of the key part of my job was literally just asking questions to people, and a lot of meetings. How many meetings? Like too many meetings. Help. But one thing that I had to do a lot was talk to a lot of the stakeholders in what I was building. So, kind of quick background. I was working on a new feature for the app Buddies, which it's basically Blue Buffalo, the pet food brand's app, which is like their reward program, and people post pics of the dogs and stuff like that. And I had to talk to so many people who had used the app or just were a part of the different teams. For example, I of course had to talk to the dev team, but I also had to talk to the sales team, who they wanted the feature that I was working on implementing in the first place. Seriously, can I say I have just blanked? Can you repeat? Wow. Honestly, yeah. Like, I personally, am I late? Nope, you're right on time. We basically just started, so you're all good. Honestly, yeah. Like, this honestly just goes with the type of person that you are personally. Obviously, you shouldn't try to change yourself, but me personally, I have a limited amount of energy throughout the day, so I can't really afford to, like, put myself up a ton. Sometimes it's like how I am, and honestly, a lot of interviewers are there for it, because I'm like no BS. So I joke around with them, have a good time. Also, because they're doing so many of these interviews, I just want to chill with them. So yeah, I think honestly most of them will understand. Like like I think more people than you might think would give you that grace. Because honestly, I have so many people that I've like emailed, and then they're like, "Oh, did you email me that?" So it happens all the time. But as I was saying, I talked to people on the sales team who actually asked for the feature in the first place, and asked them a number of questions that weren't necessarily about like the specifics of the feature. Like, that was the least important thing at the beginning, because the main thing I wanted to get figured out was why do you want this feature in the first place? What do you want it to do, like, specifically, and what goals do you want it to achieve? Because the last thing I want is for me to build this great feature that they come around and say, "Oh, actually, this isn't really what we wanted." Like that. That's kind of kicking nuts, honestly. Whatever you have. So I think it's really important to ask not just what they're asking, like specifics of, like, how effective should the feature be, like what should it be able to do, but also like why they want it in the first place. So I think asking questions shows that you're looking to learn and better understand, and asking questions was a positive to people you were trying to work with. Oh yeah, definitely. So I've done a lot of interviews for VT Hacks, actually, especially for like so basically how VT Hacks is structured is we have like different committees. Like, we have graphics, we have PR people, and we have like web development people who work on our website. And I was doing like technical interviews for people, and over time, what I've seen, like on the opposite end, like as an interviewer, is that a lot of the people who like have like technically have the experience, or like have a certain background, like weren't the best people to work with, or weren't the best people kind of moving forward, like maybe 6 months down the line. The best people, honestly, were the people who didn't necessarily know as much, like from the front, and were kind of just had the passion, really. And that sounds like cliche, but honestly, like, people who have the passion to learn and are excited about doing this job is like, it's a huge thing, because they learn learn really well. They're excited, and they get into some of the nitty gritty that some people don't, because they might take it something at surface level, or they might make assumptions, and assumptions are a very bad thing sometimes, because a lot of times just a lack of communication can kill a project, just because lack of communicating about what people want and need. Um, yeah, and so when I was working at General Mills, that was definitely something that I did a lot. And so for the specific example I'm giving, the feature they wanted was a barcode kind of scanner replacement. So how they had it before was, so they had it so that you have a bag of dog food, right? So they wanted me to. So at the moment, what their feature, with how it worked was, you had a QR code in the bag of food. You scan that, and then you scan the barcode on your food packaging, and then you get rewards points. But that was pretty confusing, because like it's two different codes, and sometimes people don't get it. So what they wanted me to do was make it so that you could just scan the bag of food itself, after you've taken a picture of the QR code inside, to make sure you aren't just taking pictures of bags of foods in the aisle willy-nilly. So you just take a picture of the bag itself as a replacement for the barcode. So I used some machine learning for that, computer vision work, and it actually came out pretty well. I was really excited about it. And so that's kind of an example of like, just like thinking about all those different questions that might seem very kind of big picture, but in reality are gonna affect you like weeks or months down the line. So as follow-up, would you say that it's also important to be open-minded and not try to be a know-it-all? If you could clarify what you mean by that, yeah, definitely do that. But in terms of trying to be a know-it-all, I've I've had a few funny scenarios of me interviewing people, and one person was, so I was kind of telling them why their approach was okay, like it was a fine approach, but for the use case I was giving them, it wasn't the best approach. Um, so oftentimes, like, so for example, I think this will be relatable to a lot of y'all. If you're building a website, right? Like technically your website might be fine, like it might be a pretty standard website, like yeah, it might be a pretty standard website. But if the website is targeted, like the target audience for that website is the elderly, for example, and the website's kind of complicated, it's not super easy to kind of navigate and things like that, like technically it's okay, but for your target audience, what in reality happens is that there's a big disconnect and kind of lack of consumer satisfaction. That's what kind of happens in this kind of interview example, when I was using kind of the hackathon community as an example, and they kind of just told me I was wrong, and that was I chuckled during the interview, and it was just really funny. So try not to do that, of course. Like try not to tell your interviewer, oh, you're just wrong, because realistically there are hundreds of solutions to a given problem. So I meant not try to discourage other people's ideas, even if you think you know how to approach a problem or implementing a feature. Yeah, definitely don't do that, of course. I think what you said about trying to be and not trying to be a know-it-all is definitely key here, just because I think a lot of interviewers kind of value the fact that you actively make it aware that you don't know a certain thing, and that's okay. Because I feel like a lot of people are very they're uncomfortable with the fact that they don't know a certain thing or a lot of things. But I think kind of addressing that to begin with, like, is a good thing, because realistically, like, this is a scenario you've just been given and you have a very, very limited amount of time to solve it. So like it's okay for you to just like not have all the solution in your mind right away and just coding it super smoothly. So yeah, I think definitely making that aware to your technical interviewer is key here, because one, you'll be able to get hints, so that's just more information, but also like I think it's just generally a good thing to do in the workplace, like as an employee. Okay, thanks for answering my question. Yeah, no problem. We can come in, honestly. We're gonna be here for 2 hours, so feel free to ask like all kinds of questions, even if it's not necessarily like technical interviews. Like if it's like other stuff, like that's fine too. Honestly, I'll be here till like 10 p.m. EST. Back to but in MNCs, I want to prepare myself for startups or sort of like that. That's not a bad start itself. I want to find something relevant to my position / the domain that I want to work. Yeah, I think I definitely get that. There's a lot of if I stutter too much, sort of produce stuff on pen and paper. Yeah, I think I definitely get that. One thing that honestly helped me a lot, and I think you might want to kind of consider, is try to do more public speaking, which is like easy to say, obviously, because it's hard to just kind of do that. But I think public speaking, at least in my eyes, has helped me a ton with like talking to people. And I feel like I'm doing an okay job here. Like I'm not like a super big pro streamer, but I feel like I have a decent amount of charisma when it comes to like being able to engage people in like a workshop like this. But back like a few years ago, I was terrible. I hated it. Um, and I would just like stutter and I was just like freeze up so much. And I just wasn't able to talk to people like I was having a conversation, which I think is how I can kind of do that now. And I think is the way that I think I do interviews and just talking to people in like a professional setting a lot better is by just being very casual about it. Just because I think I was kind of psyching myself out, you know, I was like putting a bit too much pressure on myself and kind of the expectation of an interview or like the level of professionalism or formality. So doing Emily hackathons and that 2-minute video speaking. Yeah, honestly, like demoing your projects like do a lot for you. Like even if your project like doesn't work at all, like if you just have an idea, I would still encourage you to demo 100% of the time, just because it helps you talk to people, especially the judges, because judges, a lot of people don't realize, judges are from all sorts of backgrounds, really. Like some of them are professors, some of them are like GTAs, some of them are from more like businessy backgrounds. They have a lot of different perspectives. So I think talking to judges and just getting their idea on your projects, and like if you ask like, what can I do better? Like that's definitely like a good thing to do. Helping, but I always tend to write the script and I don't have that natural flow of speaking. Yeah, I get that. For me, I try not to have a script. Um, I generally go very kind of off the cuff, and I basically have if I really need it, depending on like what I'm presenting, I usually have a set of bullet points rather than a script. So like I'll have, if I'm talking about like an app that I built, for example, I'll talk about here's the inspiration, here's how I kind of started working on it to begin with, like my approach. Here's how my approach went. Here's some of the challenges that I faced, and here's how the actual product came out, and like what I'm happy with, what I think could be better, and what I think that this app achieves that other apps don't. Like basically why I made it. Um, I have scripts. Even when I go to my doc, I can relate to this on a totally different level. I mean, yeah, honestly, it depends. Like I think, especially myself, I used to be very not scared, but just like uncomfortable speaking to people on the phone. So if I could email them, I would like always do that. So that's definitely something that I've always like struggled with. Also because like I have like today I went grocery shopping and I had so little energy. Like I basically couldn't move, so I had to take a nap. But like, oh my god, I just can't talk to people and don't have energy. Um, so yeah, I think sometimes I can be very monotone. So that's definitely something I can relate to as well. Yeah, this is also a good thing. Just if you are asked to like reverse a string, for example, asks like what you're allowed to use and what you're not allowed, because sometimes they don't want you to use certain packages, but sometimes they're completely fine with that. And in fact, that's something they might use like in their projects. So I think that's also a good thing to ask. Another tip is just having your answer in mind and not like keeping it all in your head or all on paper when you're before you even code. Honestly, just like talk through like what you think the problem is and what the pain points of finding the solution are. So in a problem we're going to go over a bit later, it's kind of like, okay, here's why. Here's why. Basically, here's why I can't figure out the solution in 5 seconds. So all the different things that make the solution more complex is how I do it personally. And I found that kind of relates to the interviewer that like I know how to kind of break down a task, which is very important because if you're given like a huge project, like it's important to be able to like break down that task into like what am I gonna get done today versus what am I gonna get done in a week from now? Like what are my deliverables gonna be? Which granted is a bit like kind of large scope for like a technical interview question, which is like 30 minutes long usually. But like kind of displaying that you understand the importance of that, I think is good. And yeah, just talking to them really, just saying things out loud. Even if you don't like have a lot to say, or like even if you're just saying, I'm thinking about this right now, and I don't have a answer to this at the moment, so I'm thinking about how to answer this problem. Like even that is valuable, I would say. Yep, like I said, they'll give you hints. They have a set of hints that they will be able to give you. Like we need to speak our thoughts. Yeah, basically, honestly, like definitely don't be afraid to just say things out loud. It usually doesn't like, it's pretty much never gonna like count against you. Another tip is that it's important to refactor. So like after you have a solution, I would definitely recommend like taking time after you have created the solution to like think about like how your function works, like basically reassess it from the top down big picture and think about like if you can like simplify it or if something doesn't work as you kind of intended or something like that and say it out loud. As I mentioned, I know I'm saying this a lot, but it's very important. So say like, oh, I want to refactor this line because I could do this, or I want to refactor this part of the function because I could do this in one line instead of three, for example. Or I want to refactor this part of my method just because the information you gave me in the problem statement, like this part of it conflicts, and it's not like it's not considering that. So I want to redo this. So that's definitely important to go over because that's what you're going to have to do in real life. You're going to have to polish your code and make sure it's optimized. Yeah, and this is another huge thing is a lot of companies value like how you explain your answer more than your actual answer and basically why you made the answer that you did because that's extremely important because a lot of the times like so if you're in industry like you're going to be given tons of new projects where you're not going to have experience with like a package or maybe even like a language or like a toolkit or a framework and you'll be having to learn stuff for that new project that you're going to be given. So like you're going to be in situations where you don't have experience with something. And I think understanding and kind of navigating that is a huge part that technical interviews kind of address compared to like behavioral interviews. Basically like how you think, I would say is like the cleanest way of kind of phrasing that. Yeah, this is another good thing. Basically like a time breakdown. So this isn't like a strict rule set or anything. It's just like a framework, but you want to have like maybe like 10% of your total time to like plan, 50% to actually like code it out, 20% to kind of refactor it, to like make changes and stuff, and then 20% to discuss with the interviewer. Yep. And the other thing I would say is so post like the bulk of the interview, um, like the technical part of the technical interview, like take the chance to like ask that interviewer like a ton of questions. Like if they are cool with it and you are under a huge time constraint, like please ask them quite a few questions, just because that person compared to like someone doing a behavioral interview is more likely like a maybe like an engineer or like a senior developer or someone, which is really valuable because that's like a role that you would want to be in. So it's a good thing to kind of ask them those kinds of behavioral questions and basically just interview them like after your technical interview and be like, so like, what do you like about working at, well, using MLH as an example, what do you like about working at MLH? Um, why did you choose MLH over other companies? Why do you stay at MLH? Um, how are like the benefits? And they probably can't go into like super specifics, obviously. But asking those general things like give you a lot of insights that I think a lot of others won't, because usually like I feel like kind of engineers and developers that are interviewing you give off a pretty different vibe from people who are interviewers, like who are like that's their job is interviewing people. Um, so I think they're a lot more casual about it usually in terms of like answering questions and like their experience. And they also, they like having a good time. So if you ask them like, oh, what's the coolest project you've built at this company? They might just get excited just because you're asking them a question that they like and they're passionate about, of course. And that also gives you a lot of insight into the kinds of things that they built and that you'll be able to build. Yeah. So another thing is just using the solutions that are out there for kind of checking your solutions. So this depends on kind of what your interviewer viewing method is. You can use stuff like Replit. You can use Visual Studio's code is pretty lightweight. You can use a lot of stuff. There's a lot of browser-based coding platforms as well. So a lot of the times they will give you a platform that you'll use, but sometimes they won't. So I think it's a good thing in general just to kind of debug your code, especially when you're practicing, just because that's how you learn what you're doing wrong. So if you haven't used Replit before, just go to replit.it, search the language you want to use, and actually, let me the check-in link. I forgot to do that. So if you haven't checked in for this event already, I put the check-in link in chat for you. All right. So as I was saying, on Replit, you can search the language you want to use. Pretty simple. Type in on the left. Basically create a function and then call that function and then run it. And then boom. And basically, there's the kind of unique name at the end of the URL that you can give to the presenter, like if they want to kind of view your solution. All right, so let's get into a little bit of a problem statement here. And I basically want everyone in chat to kind of work together to kind of solve this. Help each other. Like if you have questions, just ask them in chat. And if you're stuck on something, y'all can help each other out. I think that's very valuable. So just going over this, let's go over this. So write a function that takes a single input, which is a number, and it prints out and it takes a single input, a number, and prints out 1 through 100. If the number being printed is divisible by 3, print fizz instead of the number itself. If the number being printed is divisible by 5, print buzz. If the number being printed is divisible by 3 and 5, print fizz buzz. So basically, this is kind of the desired output right here. It's like you have 1 and 2, which are completely normal, And then 3 is fizz because it's divisible by 3, 4, buzz because it's divisible by 5, etc., etc. So what I want y'all to do is just take a minute here, maybe like a few minutes. And you don't have to like completely code this out. Really just kind of pseudocode is fine. Because this is like for you, obviously. So you can be as in-depth with it as you want to because it's just practice, obviously. So I want you to kind of pair up with people in chat and kind of ask questions, kind of pseudocode or code your solutions, kind of put them in chat, and people can kind of refine those solutions. So please do that. And I'll give y'all maybe like 5 minutes max. In the meantime, I think I'll try to think of some more things to talk about outside of just like core technical interview stuff, maybe like internship stuff, because I think that might be interesting. And obviously, if you have any questions, put them in chat. One question. We'll take any integer input. Oh, good eye. So I had to rewrite this question real quick. Okay. So what it was before I changed it, was basically, so 1 through 100, it was supposed to be taking the input of what you put in. So for example, 25, it would put in 1 through 25. I just put it 1 through 100 because it's simpler. So ignore like the input stuff. Just make it so that it prints out 1 through 100. Like, that's fine. So good question. That was on me. Yeah, that was the original question, but I changed it to just be, it basically prints from 1 to 100. And then we actually put the problem statement just so it's easy for y'all to view. And at the end of the 5 minutes, we're going to be going over some potential solutions and just some things to think about as you're making the solution. I think I'll give y'all maybe like 2 to 3 minutes more. And obviously it doesn't have to be in depth or anything. It could just be like pseudocode or just a general idea, really. Because again, this is just practice. And I think if you're already done, one thing I kind of want to mention, just so I have something to talk about, like in this downtime, it's really just y'all like working on the problems. So one thing that I personally am interested in is working full time at MLH, but I'm kind of still in the mindset of like thinking about what at MLH or just in hackathons in general like could be improved or changed. So in the meantime, or if you feel a true solution, what I want y'all to put in chat is if you've been to a hackathon, which I hope y'all have, because if you haven't, it's awesome. If y'all have been to a hackathon, what do you think could make them better? What do you think could be improved? Stuff like that. Whether it's like, the stuff going on, the prizes, MLH sponsors. It doesn't have to be MLH specific, really. Just like at any hackathon, what do you think could be improved? More Blahosh content. I didn't think there was a wrong answer. I think you found the wrong answer, Adam. I think you did. You actually found the wrong answer in a question where there were no wrong answers. Congratulations. In-person interaction. Yeah, I'd say that's definitely a key thing, because one thing I run a workshop at a lot of hackathons called Beginner's Guide to Hackathons. Are you an anti-Blahosh? I like Blahosh. I think the emotes are very cute. I think it gets a bit saturated and kind of normie at a certain point, though. This is my take. I know people are gonna come after me, the torches and pitchforks, though, whether it's online or an offline hackathon. Yeah, I would definitely agree. Like, as I was saying, one thing I run a lot is the Beginner's Guide to Hackathons kind of workshop at different events that I'm coaching. And one thing I see a lot is that, I say in that workshop, is that a lot of people just, they find a team or they don't, and then they go into a hidey hole and code their solutions and don't really interact with anyone else, which I think is a huge missed opportunity. Because like winning a hackathon is great. Like, I'm not going to tell you it's not, because it is. But like getting connections and just like talking to people, making friends with people is such like an important thing, man. Like, for example, like one of the first hackathons I went to, which was Hackathon, which is a hackathon at George Washington University. Terry is a person that I still talk to somewhat to this day, and he was one of my teammates, and I believe now he works in cloud engineering at Deloitte, if I'm not mistaken. And he actually gave me a recommendation for a job. So I think a lot of people kind of underestimate, like, yeah, you could win a prize, but also what if you could get a job? But also, what if you could just make a friend? Like, I remember one person I know, we were teaming up at an event, and he was trying to get into AI/ML, and he was working on a different part of the project, but he knew that I was interested in that. So, yeah, he kind of asked me, and I gave him a bunch of resources on like learning that stuff. So, that's just an example of like, how useful those connections can be. Hey, Mr. Instructor, my name is Zane, by the way. Oh wait, are the names not up? If not, I feel like it should show up. Okay, there it shows up. Okay, I just want to make sure. Hey, Mr. Instructor, my name is Zane. Are we writing any kind of programming language or just writing down on paper? No, you can basically write it down in whatever you want. It could be any programming language you want. It could be pseudocode. It could be basically anything. It's not very strict. And honestly, like with any interview, that's what you'll have. Like, an interviewer usually isn't going to say like, unless it's for a specific language role. For example, if like a company's only looking for like a Ruby developer, like that's the role that you're going into. But usually if they're looking for like a general kind of software developer, they're usually gonna tailor it to, like, there's usually multiple options if you're like interested in Python or Java or C, etc. So you can do it however you want, really. But I will go. Yep, says always ask questions. As I said before, pseudocode your solution beforehand. Write it out. Say in chat where you're stuck. Refactoring. And this is also a good thing. If you have a friend who's like having a technical interview soon, and if maybe you have one soon, It's a good thing to kind of like be each other's technical interviewers, because that's actually very, very effective. Just because you get that kind of vibe, but it's comfortable because it's your friend. I find that's very good to do. So this is an example of something you could have done. This is in Python. So basically, you know, if x mod 3 is 0, x mod 5 is 0, this fizzbuzz, and you just use else if statements, and otherwise it just prints the number itself. So that's pretty simple. Basically, line 1 just defines the function. The loop is in line 3. And basically, line 4 basically just checks if it's divisible by 3 and 5, because you want to do that first. And then you check the 3 and 5 individually. And then it just prints the number. So, easy peasy. One thing I lacked is to do hackathons both online and offline, but I want that 5-minute pitch sort of thing in hackathons or projects. Like, we do get the demo video, we don't really interact with the judges or likewise. I would say that definitely depends on the particular hackathon that you're going to. So, for example, at VT Hacks, what we did it kind of like science fair style, because it was all in person this year. Where basically judges go around to tables where hackers are, or where a team of hackers is, and then they judge their project. Basically, how we did it is we gave them like a general kind of time frame, just because obviously we don't want it to take forever. But we basically gave like a strict time limit of like, I think at the time it was like 2 minutes for like the actual like presentation. But then we gave a flexible time limit of 3 minutes for questions. And the questions part was really where like people kind of like, have fun and just talk to the judges and kind of, ask all sorts of questions. So I think that's definitely possible. I'd say it's less possible at online events, obviously, because just the format difference. But at in-person hackathons, I'd say it's definitely something that you can do. And if like it's a very strict time limit, they'll just say so. So I don't think it's a big deal. And honestly, I think that's a huge thing. Just asking the judges about like, what their perspective on your project is, like about your presentation. Like, so basically just going through your presentation for like 2 or whatever minutes. And then after that being like, so how was my presentation? Like, is there anything you thought I could have done better? I think that has a lot of value. And it depends on the person, but me personally, I'm the kind of person who doesn't care. Like, if someone like, says things in kind of like a blunt way, as long as I kind of get that feedback. So I say like, roast me. So like, tell me my presentation was trash. Come on. I'm that kind of person because I want people to give me like that honest feedback, even if it does, not feel great in the moment. So that's just me though. So basically, so we don't have to do this here because this is a different format. One thing I would recommend is with the questions that I'm going to be giving, use Google, please. Like, this is practice, so this is basically like the main part of this. So I understand y'all are not going to have experience with some of these things. That's the point. So make sure you use Google a lot so you kind of understand how these solutions can be kind of figured out. So I think what I'll do is I'll kind of give this practice problem 25 minutes. Yeah. I'll give like a practice problem, and then we'll kind of just talk about hackathons in general. And I want this to be pretty chill. So we'll basically just kind of chill here, work on the solution, and then I'll kind of go over some of the potential answers. But for this first problem, Write a function that takes a single input, which is a string, and it returns that character, and it returns the character that appears most frequently within that string. But I'll give y'all some time to do that. If y'all have questions for me, so I have something to kind of take the time here, feel free to let me know. Oh, my shoulder's killing me. I think until I get some questions, until I get some questions, I might just go through how you might want to Google this sort of question. Oops. Let's see if I'll change the music here. I don't know if I'll do the full 25 minutes here. I might just do like 20. But yeah, I just put a new banner up. So if you have things, like I said, that you think could be improved about the MLH community or just hackathons in general, let me know in chat. And I think that's one thing I want to talk about because I'm very interested in that. This one thing I could talk about is I am going to, I believe it's Tamahack in a few weeks actually for a coach for as a coach. So I've never actually been to Texas. So if anyone's from Texas, please let me know any travel recommendations or like things you think are fun to do. I'm not sure what people do in Texas for fun. I heard people say howdy a lot, so I guess I'm looking forward to that. I don't know. I've never been to Texas before, so I'm excited. All right, I think I'll give like maybe 5 more minutes, but just to make things a bit more engaging. I'm just gonna play some Pokemon, just real quick. Just to have something to do in the meantime. Yeah, I don't see anything coming up in chat, so this is a pretty chill stream again. Because I think, and the reason I want it to be is because, well, one, it's kind of late in the week, but also there's so much stress around technical interviews that I think people just should kind of have a safe space to kind of tackle some of those problems, because honestly they could be so stressful. Like, I know the Google interview, when I did that, the Google interview was like 2 behavioral interviews and then like 4 tech screenings, and the 4 tech screenings were like all in one day. It was like crazy. So it's so much. All right, so we got an electrode. They got a Kamala. Should be able to just go Bronzong here. Yep, that's fine. I'll reflect. I think I'll set my screens up. They went Muck, that's fine. Muck, does it have a fire move? It might have Fire Punch, but honestly, that's fine. Nope, goes for toxic spikes. I'll go SBM just so I can reflect its next layer. Nope, goes for Fire Punch, that's okay. It only got up 1 layer of toxic spikes, so it's not gonna like do incrementally more damage. It's gonna do like consistent damage. Nitro's just barely faster than me. And Bronzong, able to switch out. They go into Muck. I'll go for Psychic. Fortunately, I don't have a poison type to suck up the spikes. That is unfortunate. I wish the Electro got Rapid Spin. I feel like that'd be really cool. And for anyone here who's new, here real quick is the question, practice problem we're on. I'm just going to give basically when this Pokemon match ends, I'm going to go over the solution to it. But basically all it is you want to write a function that takes a single input, which is a string, and it returns the character that appears most frequently in that string. So it's a practice question right there. I'll go over the solution to that in a little bit. Let's see. I don't have a great switch here. Just Iron Head? Yeah. I'll go Kamala. And that's the good thing about Kamala is its ability makes it sleep, so it can't get statused. I'll try Sucker Punching. Nope, they switch to their own Kamala. That's a not so bueno switch for me. That wasn't great. I feel like their Kamala might be a similar set to mine, so I'll go Phalanx. And I'll... What do I do here, actually? all rock slide. Oh, those are some bad plays. My rock slide misses. I have Electrode, Thunderbolt, KO. Actually, this match might go on a while longer, so I think I'll go over the solution now. So again, problem was a function that takes a single input, which is a string, and returns the character that appears most frequently within that string. So this is an example of a good solution to that. So line 1 defines a function, obviously, and then we create an empty dictionary. We have a we basically have a max variable, which is 0, just to instantiate it, and then we have a character variable that's just an empty string. We have our loop, which iterates it basically over every character in car map, which is the string that was passed into it. Wait, is it? Yep, yeah, for every car in STR. Yep. Okay, so now I get it. So we basically have so we iterate over every character in STR. STR is the input string, and then we basically have each character in car map, which is our dictionary, updated, and then we basically check if that character that we're on in the loop exists in the dictionary, and then we basically add 1 to our value if it does exist, and if it doesn't, we basically create a key, and then we basically have its value be 1. And then we iterate over each key in car map. And then we check if the value of the current key is greater than the max. It's not, or if it is, we set the value to max to the value of the current key. And then it returns the character, which is basically the character that appeared most often. Now here is a better solution. Like, you could have done it that way, but most places, I would say, want you to have something like this. And it also depends on what you're allowed to do, like what they want you to use, they might specify. And this is also a time when it's important to ask questions like, what should I do if 2 characters appear the same amount of times equally? Like, do they want you to show both of them? Like, what do they want you to do when that happens? What do they want that desired outcome to be? So that's a good time to ask that question. So again, we define a function. We have our max and our character again, and basically iterate over the string. And we have a people function in Python str.count. So we basically count the number of times that character appears in the string and check if it's greater than the value of max. And we'll set max equal to that number if it is. And we've reduced the complexity of this by quite a bit, actually. You can see that this is, you see that this is like quite a bit. Oh, so Python has this built-in function, so that's why solution 2 is better. And this just less room for error overall, and it's just a lot more readable, which I say is a big thing. Again, like I said, whether multiple characters that appear the same number of times, should we count punctuation? It's important. Is the string only ASCII characters, or are there Unicode characters included? All right, gonna go over the next problem here. Again, if you have questions to the banner, or if you have something to say about the banner that's going around on stream, put it in chat so I have something to talk about. Otherwise, I'll basically just be chilling here with y'all, answering Q&A in chat. But here's problem number 2. Equals as array, write a function that takes a single input, which is an array. Find the index of the element. That was just a weird noise coming from my window. Write a function that takes a single input, an array. Find the index of the element that separates the array so that the two sides have equal sums. If there isn't an index, return -1. So for example, in this one right here, so in this example right here, the index of that is 3, so 0, 1, 2, 3. Because 8 is the index of 3, and basically 2, 4, and 6 add up to 12, and then 6, 4, and 2 add up to 12. And this next one, 20, 15, and -5, and 10. That adds up to 40, and then 35 and 5 add up to 40, so then we have 17. Ask questions in chat, and do any Q&A. Otherwise, I think I'm just gonna be chilling y'all, and I'll give y'all around. I think I'll give maybe like 10 minutes, 10, 15 minutes. All right, I think I'll just give 5 more minutes here. As always, if you have questions, put them in chat. Another thing, just for y'all's information, I'm going to be doing, I believe, 2 more streams tomorrow. One's going to be the part 2 of my mobile app development series. Basically, going to be teaching y'all how to build mobile apps, but also I wanted to hear mobile apps that you all thought were cool. So during that stream, I'm going to be taking recommendations from chat on kind of apps they think are nice. And we're going to try and kind of recreate some of those aspects in Flutter. And then 1 to 3 p.m. EST, I'm going to be doing an intro to game design workshop, which is basically going to be me playing some Overwatch and maybe some other games. Basically just talking about some of the design considerations within the game that people might not understand firsthand, kind of how a first-person shooter is created, and how you might want to go about balancing a game if you want it to be competitive. So if you're interested in game design, feel free to check that out tomorrow. But yeah, I'll go over the solution now. So as I mentioned, we're a function that takes a single input, an array, and the index of the element that separates the array so that 2 sides have equal sums. If there isn't one, return -1. So here's an example of a good solution. So we have, of course, define our function. We have our loop that iterates over the entirety of the array, basically checking if the sum of the elements in the array to the left of the current index is equal to the sum of the elements in the array to the right of the current index. And if the sums are equal, it returns I, which is the index of the element, which would split the array into the 2 equal sums. And if there's no sums that are equal, we return -1. Boom, easy. And this is an example of a better solution that is actually a bit longer, probably because it takes other things into consideration. So for example, we take our argument, basically have a variable called current index and left, just empty 0 variables, and then we have a variable right, which is the sum of the elements inside of the array. Line 7, we create a loop that iterates over the entirety of the array. We basically subtract the value of the current element from right. So in this case, right would be sum of all the values of the array, and then the current element, so say the total array is 20, and then our current element is 5. We check if the value of current index is greater than 0. And if it is, we basically add that previous element to the value of left. So let's say 20 minus equals 5, so 15. And that is greater than 0, so it is. If it is, we add it to left. And line 11 basically checks if left is equal to right. Basically see if we've hit that kind of midpoint. And if they are equal, we return the current index, which is, what we want. And if we go through the entirety of the loop and left is never equal to right, then the function returns a -1. And the reason it's better is because the second solution has an ON notation, whereas the first one is n squared. Basically measuring, if you don't know, Big O basically measures the efficiency of an algorithm. And if you'd like, I can also list some resources about Big O notation. And then also, I guess this is a generic thing, but good variable naming practices like number instead of I. And again, good things you might want to ask. Are all the numbers positive? So they're all integers. Are there any built-in things you can't use? Should we be checking that all of the elements of the array are numbers? Like, what exactly is your input going to be? Those are all very good questions. Yeah, I'd say one thing that's kind of key here is good variable naming practices, because I've worked with quite a few developers, and honestly, some I've seen, even some senior people, just don't have good variable naming practices. So please name your variables, even if they're a bit longer. It's good to be descriptive, because when you're going to hand off that code to someone else to work on, you want them to know what's going on. So here we're going to be doing another practice problem. I'm going over something called the sieve of radiciousness. And basically writing a function that takes an integer, returns all the prime numbers up to that integer. So for example, in this example right here, we have sieve 50, and the output is 2, 3, 5, all of these numbers. So the idea of the sieve is basically creating a list of consecutive numbers from 2 up until n. So for example, 50 would be Rn in that previous example right there. From 2 through n, and we initially want to let p equal 2, which is the smallest prime number we can have. And we want to enumerate through the multiples of p by counting 2n from 2p in increments of p. And we kind of want to mark those in our list. And then we want to find the first number that's greater than p in the list that isn't marked. And if there isn't a number like that, we could just stop. And we have p equal the new number, which is the next prime that we have. And when the algorithm terminates, all the numbers that are remaining and aren't marked in the list are primes that are below n, which is R50. And let me open this up. Oh, the link I have didn't work, but let me try and find something else. So you can watch this video. Oops. So as we can see, basically all those in multiples of 19. Let's see. Oops. Now we see that on 29, all of the multiples of 29 are already knocked out. So that's where we end. So we basically have all the multiples of the integers going up and up and up, knocking out all the numbers until, well, in this case, at 900. When we cross out all the numbers that are the multiples of numbers going from the bottom one. But then when we go up to a number with whose multiples are all already crossed out, boom. Now we know, now we stop, and then now we know that these are all of the numbers that are prime numbers below our end, which in this case was 900. And I think this visualization makes it a lot easier to understand. Because I think when you're just kind of explaining it from word of mouth, it's, it's a lot more difficult to understand. I'll give y'all 15 minutes, let's say, basically recreating the sieve and writing a function that takes an integer, turns all the prime numbers up to that integer. And let me actually provide the link to that visualization I found, because that was really cool. I'll put it in the chat for you all. And as always, put questions in chat. If you want to answer the question, what part of hackathons you think could be improved, put that in chat as well so we can talk about it. Otherwise, I'll be chilling here for around 15 minutes or so while y'all are working on that problem. Can maybe give 5-10 more minutes. I know this problem is a bit more in depth than some of the other ones we were doing. Alright, I think I'll just give like 5 more minutes here. Good night. Good night to you too. think now it's fine to go over the solution here. So here's one possible solution. So basically, first off, we're just declaring our function. And then we have two empty arrays, civ and primes. And in line 6 and 7, we're basically filling civ with the value true and -1 times. And n is just the number of times that we're going to be having to do this. So for example, in this first example here, civ was 50, so it gives us all the primes up to 50. And line 9 basically creates our loop, which is from 2 to n, because 2 is the first prime. Line 10 checks basically if the value of civ at I -2 is true. And then we need to set up another loop that basically, if that is true, we basically execute it. And it's the tricky part, which is basically it iterates by I instead of by 1, like all the other loops have. And then if the elements in the array are non-prime numbers, then it changes all of those trues to false, like we saw in the visualization. And then line 14, we have another new loop that basically iterates from 0 to the whole length of the civ array. And then if the value of civ at the given index is true, then we basically add that to the primes array, and then the primes array is basically what we want. And here we have a better solution that's definitely more readable. So we have our function. We basically declare our array civ, but this time we fill it with false for the length of the number passed the function. So in this case, we could do like 50, for example, and then we have our empty array of primes. And so we basically have our array kind of like the second loop that we had before, which basically iterates from 2 to n, because 2 is the first prime. And we check if the value of civ at the index of prime is false. And if it is false, it adds I to primes. And then we create a loop that iterates again by I instead of by 1. And it changes all the values in civ from false to true if they are a prime number. And then we have our primes, which of course is our desired output. So it takes this out, and that's what it returns. So one, it's more readable, but also it iterates fewer times, which is especially important depending on where this is being used. So for example, complexity, programming complexity can also be important in terms of like computing resources. So for example, if you're building something on the cloud, like you're charged based on like your computing complexity. So that could definitely reduce costs, but also the solution one is prone to errors. And of course, better variable names. And as always, make sure you ask your questions like, are there any built-in things that you can't use, or will the input always be positive? So hopefully y'all learned something. There are additional practice problems I have, but if you want to talk interview stuff or just general hackathon stuff with me, feel free to just message me. Feel free to join my stream tomorrow. Again, 1 to 3 p.m. EST. I'm doing a stream, I believe, on game design. I'm going to be playing some Overwatch and maybe some other games, talking about their design decisions and how you basically can create a game. and especially a competitive kind of esport, because I think that's really interesting, talking about the game design decisions that go into that. And then I'm also going to be doing part 2 of my 3-part mobile app development series. So again, thanks everyone for coming. This is a pretty chill stream, which is good. I think, we should have the opportunity to just be chill with these kinds of things, be able to use Google, be able to ask questions to each other. So I hope everyone learned something. But yeah, I'll see you all tomorrow. Bye.